Hello and welcome to the Cricketers Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Tim Williams. We're here to recap the world in cricket, and what a week it's been. If you're an Aussie, you're probably still hiding in a dark room. If you're an Indian, you're probably still partying on the streets of Mumbai. If you're a neutral, I don't really know what you're doing right now or who you're cheering for. I'm not sure. But here to talk through that with me and work that out, it's Cricket Australia commentator, former Sydney Sixers media manager, Max Bryden. Maxie, how are you, mate?
Tim, going well. Mate, I'll give you the hot tip. Those neutrals would be celebrating the demise of Aussie cricket like they just won the World Cup. I think that a lot of people like to see us fail, so they'd be definitely pro-India at the moment, that's for sure.
I know a lot of people like to hate on Australian cricket because, these macho blokes, of course, these tough Aussie cricketers, and with success comes hatred. You reckon more people wanted India to win than Australia to win that, Maxi?
I don't reckon they would have said that before the game, but seeing the way that it unfolded, they'd be absolutely lapping it up. You've got to think that there is a lot of Englishmen in the world who, from the Ashes perspective, would love seeing us fail. There's also a lot of old brigade who probably just don't like the way the Australian team go about it at the moment, who would be loving it too. But, mate, I hated it, and I'm really looking forward to dissecting it with you and our other guest today.
Yeah, well, fortunately, you've got an avenue to blow up about it, mate, and vent all your concerns. Our next guest for the show, a bloke who spends more time mining cricket data than Steve Smith does shadow batting. Random stats guy. Rando, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. Thank you for having me on. Pleasure to join you and Maxi for this pod. I would say that considering the Indian population, surely there were more people wanting to see Australia's demise just off the back of that. So it was sad to see Australia go down the test, but I guess that provides so many topics for this podcast this week.
Thank God that it is a 5-test series, the first time ever between Australia and India, because I tell you what, we're going to need it after the way we started. There's a lot of work to do for the Aussies. Now, guys, why we are here. What is the Cricketers Playbook podcast all about? Of course, if you're familiar with SC Playbook and SC Playbook Cricket, it's heavily fantasy focused and has been for a long time, and we love it. But there's a few pretty switched on melons that know the game as well. So we're increasing our general cricket content after starting the Cricketers Playbook podcast last year for just a few episodes. We got good feedback from that, so keen to keep it going on and build on it again this summer. The aim of this podcast, essentially, we want to be the T20 of podcasting, certainly cricket podcasting. We want to keep you informed about all the big debate in the game, help fuel your pub debates with your mates, give you a bit of ammo when you're going toe-to-toe with a mate about whether Marnus Labuschagne should or shouldn't be dropped by the Aussies. We'll give you every argument and how to beat it. The panel and myself, we're cricket nuts. We love the game. We know it inside out. At least we act like we do. We also follow on what's going on around the world of cricket. We want to know how Ashton Turner went in the Vitality Blast in England this year, how Nathan Lyon performed in county cricket this season, and, of course, how Josh Butler's seen them over in the Abu Dhabi T10 tournament. But it's hard to do because there's so much cricket going on around the world. There's so many competitions, both domestic and international. So we are here to recap all the best performances across the world each week and have a bit of fun in the process, making sure we keep out all the boring stuff and just highlight the good stuff that happened, and those performances that make you drop your jaw and go, right, this boat's coming over the Big Bash, or pushing for test selection, international selection, whatever it might be in whatever competition. We are going to be on top of it. And in a quick little snippet, you're going to know what's going on as well. So, boys, before we get stuck into it, on today's show, we're going to recap the major talking points out of the Australia versus India first test match. Do we need another seamer? The Australians, that is. What's the trajectory of Jaiswal, the Indian prodigy, knocking out at 161 on debut down in Australia? The appeal, Rando and Maxi are going toe-to-toe, debating whether or not they think Marnus Labuschagne should or shouldn't be dropped from the Australian test team after another failure. We head over to the IPL auction as well, where 13-year-old Vaibhav Suryavanshi earned historic IPL deal. Rando stat deep dive comes in after that. He collates some of the best data in sport, this man. He finds the absolute best of it, shares it with the listeners, and then Maxi and I are going to debate it. Then part two of the show, you could nearly call it. We then go into the best performances in world cricket over the past week to name our world team of the week. Also kicking off our leaderboard for the upcoming summer of cricket for, you know what, I'll get to that later. I'm going to tease that a little bit more later on. But boys, enough out of me. You know what the Cricketers Playbook podcast is all about. Let's get to what everyone wants to hear about, and that is the Australia versus India first test match over in Perth. And as I said, there are tons of places you can go to listen to general cricket chat and that. We want to talk about the good stuff. This is meant to be exciting. I'm going to dig straight into it, boys. Mitchell Marsh, 12 overs out of a total of 134 in the second innings. I've seen people out there saying that, because India had such a big second innings, we couldn't bowl them out. We didn't even really get close, essentially. I'll start with you, Maxi. Do you think the Australian team needs another all-rounder that can contribute more than what Mitch Marsh does? Is there any pressure on Mitch Marsh off the back of this? How do you feel about that scenario?
Well, I'll tell you how I feel. I don't think there's ever been a cricketer whose stocks have risen in amongst an Aussie loss like Cam Green's have. His ability to bat in the middle order and bring us some bowling, just make him look like an absolute legend at the moment, and a player that we're going to sorely miss throughout this 5-match series. Look, do we need extra bowling? It's a real tough one. I think we do, and I think that the reason that we do is that we've had it for quite a while. Our bowlers at the moment, they looked a little bit underdone, and I think they're going to be better for the run in the next Adelaide Test, but we really sorely miss that guy who could actually threaten and take wickets when they need a break. The only issue I've got is that often the conversation about Mitch Marsh in the last couple of years with his bowling, which, to be fair, with Cam Green on the side, he hasn't needed a lot to do. It's been that he's genuinely in the best 6 batters in the country. And is the next guy, the next cab off the rank, be it a Jack Edwards or be the guy that's the name on everyone's lips at the moment, Bo Webster, is he genuinely in the top 6 batters in this country? And I don't think he is. So you'd be sacrificing a lot of your batting potential to bring in that extra bowler. So I feel like we're just going to have to suck it up, unfortunately.
And look, we'll get to Marnus Labuschagne shortly and his position in the team, but maybe there's an opportunity to bring in someone like, whether it's a Bo Webster, an Aaron Hardy, whoever it might be, and slot in there. It's obviously, rather than going to say like a Josh Inglis, it's going to weaken the order a little bit, but potentially solves a little bit of a headache for those people in the camp of dropping Marnus Labuschagne. Rando, I'll go to you, mate. How do you feel about that? Did you feel that we were short a bowler obviously in particular that second innings against India? Because Mitch Marsh, he was coming and going from the field, getting treatments, all sorts of things. He did get through it okay, fortunately, but it was probably an area of concern for some.
Yeah, absolutely. I think definitely underdone. First time, I guess, the boys played Test cricket, it was New Zealand in February, wasn't it? Their last Test match. So it's been a long time. This was obviously in the Perth heat as well, 35 degrees. India batted superbly. Their tactics were amazing. They obviously sent out the Aussie batters to bat just as the sun was coming down, making it really difficult. But I thought the way that the Indians batted through that, they challenged our bowlers, I guess. Mitch Marsh not having as much. Obviously, we were a lot underdone. But as you guys have mentioned, do we really sacrifice a batsman for some more bowling? We obviously threw out Bo Webster, took 3 for in both innings of that recent India A clash. He's taken 8 wickets this season in Shield bowling, 93 overs. But there's another man as well. He's the top run scorer in the Shield at the moment, Hilton Cartwright. He can bowl some right arm medium pace if we need it. Bowled 32 overs in the Shield this season, 4 wickets, strike rate of 48 balls, which is almost half the strike rate of Bo Webster's. So there's a potential that we could use a Hilton Cartwright in amongst that well as well. I know he hasn't gotten much realm. I know he's aging at 31, but that could be another possible option. But for the time being, and something that I've kind of brought into this podcast, the whole thing, I think it's not panic stations and dropping players at the moment. I think pick and stick for the time being and see how we go.
A very quick side note, Rando, to our it is the first time you've spoken cricket on our podcast, but I can't believe I didn't drop this in your intro and I went with the Steve Smith shadow batting. But, mate, you're a dead set clone to Marcus Stoinis. Everyone watching's obviously worked that out by now, but you must get it a bit, mate, surely. And also, it's a great compliment, let's be fair.
Everywhere I go, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I obviously can't say that my lookalike's Marcus Stoinis because I just feel like I'm up myself, but I'm so glad you brought that up, and it wasn't scripted. Wasn't any pre-game chat. This is just you bringing it up now.
Yeah, I'll collect my cash after the show. Thanks, mate. But, yes, back to what we're here for, and the cricket and Mitch Marsh. Look, I just think, to quote Rando, it's not panic stations just yet, and we've got such an all-star bowling lineup. At the end of the day, we're the number one. Well, we're not the number one test nation in the world in terms of the World Test Championships as it stands, but we're the current winners of that. So I don't, it's one test. we rolled them India for 150 odd in that first innings. I think we're going to be a lot better. We're going to take a lot of lessons from that. We'll get some probably slightly more spin-friendly decks that'll bring Nathan Lyon into the game more. So I'm okay with it for the time being. So funny, interesting to see how that one does play out heading into the game too, because it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of changes according to Andrew McDonald, but we'll keep an eye on it. Now, guys, let's get into him now, because I'm getting excited. I don't often get excited for Indian cricketers, as impressive as they are, but boys, Jaiswal, he's an absolute superstar. The second player before 23 years of age to have 4 scores of 150 or more, alongside the great Don Bradman. He's just, every bit about him, it's hard not to like him. Clearly, he's got the talent. He's not a future superstar. He's a superstar right now. But everything about him, I love his charisma. He's got some chat out on the field. That chat to Mitch Starc to quote, "It's coming too slow." And you look at Mitch Starc, look back at Jaiswal and just say, is this kid serious? There was nothing he could say because he was hitting him all over the field. I just sit back there, and normally that arcs me up as an Australian with an Indian having a go at us, but you just sat there and go, he's right. Mate, it could have been coming another 20 Ks quicker and it would have worried him. Maxie, I'll start with you, mate. What's the ceiling for this kid? Because he's a freak.
He is a freak. And look, specifically the ceiling, I don't know if we've seen a player come through like this just before, who combines that old world technical capability with this modern 6-hitting IPL T20 stroke making all around the ground. And I was thinking this week, how do you describe this guy? And for me, he's like a sports car. He's beautiful on the eye. He's technically brilliant, but underneath the hood is just this motor and this acceleration, this power, which I don't think we've really come to terms with. And I think he's going to be one of the all-time greats. He's on track already for an amazing Indian career, and I think he's going to be one of the true players of this next generation who can define Indian cricket in all 3 formats. And the thing that I love most about him is that he is prepared to give it a go in the test match arena. There are always fears that test cricket could be on the decline, and things like the IPL are just going to take precedence and take eyeballs away from this game that, particularly in Australia, we just have so much affection and affinity for. But players like Jaiswal and his ability to do it in all formats are going to keep the eyeballs and the interest there. And it was just a pleasure to watch.
It's a fantastic point you make, and without getting too far ahead of ourselves, and it's hard not to, you wonder the impact that he will have in regards to that, and for future Indian prospects going, that he's really focused on. Of course, particularly as an Indian, you can cover the IPL, you can cover the test stuff. That they do it quite well, but the impact he's going to have on future generations by making this decision. Rando, I'll throw to you, mate. Jaiswal, what do you make of that? What's the ceiling? Is there a ceiling? It probably doesn't exist, let's be fair. What's your take?
It's absolutely crazy. And, it's you see him batting with Virat Kohli, the man he's going to succeed. Basically, you'd think that's how high his ceiling's going to be. You've had players like Tendulkar, Kohli, Ganguly all come through. He's had more test centuries in a calendar. He's posted more test centuries in a calendar year by an Indian at the age of 23, and he's still got 4 more innings left to go before he does turn over into 23 on December the 28th. But this kid's story is unbelievable. He moved to Mumbai at 11 years old, selling panpuri on the streets, an Indian street food that I had to look up to understand. But he had nowhere to live. He was living in a tent. It's just an absolute coming of age story. And not only does he inspire the next generation of Indians, but definitely a lot of people who would be in the same situation as him, that you can make it on the big stage and ramp shot one of Australia's best bowlers to come up with your century in style. All the records come through. He's the 3rd Indian to score a ton on their maiden tour to Oz, the first since Suvraj Ganguly. He clocked over 1,500 test runs in his first 15 tests, the first ever Indian to reach 1,500 runs in their first 15 tests, overtaking Vijay Hazare as well. So there's just so many records that he's already breaking. And then, of course, the 6th record that he overtook Brendan McCullum for most sixes in a test calendar year with 34. So there's so much to love about this kid. He's got the charisma. I think he's going to build a massive following over there for the years to come. And when you think that the Kohli reign's over, here comes another superstar out of India.
Yeah, and to do it, of course, like just adding more weight to it is the daunting prospect of coming down to Australia, playing on our decks for the first time, struggling in the first innings. He comes out in the second innings after India have made 150. The pressure's on, and he comes out and belts that 160 as an opener. Simply phenomenal. He's going to be, I think, for me, and again, we're speaking very early on. Things can change very, very quickly, but watching like AB de Villiers tear up Australia for many years, where you just go, every part of me should be hating this, but I love AB de Villiers so much and what he achieved so much that it was hard to do. Just as bad as it was in that first test match, it was like, oh God, this bloke's good to watch. Boys, let's move on to the appeal, the part of the show where we find two contrasting views and we go head to head. And this week it is it's the topic of the week going around probably Australian cricket, and that is Marnus Labuschagne. Drop or stick by him. Marnus, he's averaging just 24.5 this year, averaging 30.8 in his past 21 tests. Andrew McDonald's come out, the Australian coach, and to quote, "We're really confident that at his best, he's the player we need." Thanks for that hot take, Macca, but at his best, he's one of the best players in world cricket. That'd be fantastic if he could come out and average 60 or 70 for the rest of the series. But unfortunately, that is it's a bit of a vague comment. So, look, it doesn't sound like there's going to be mass changes at the moment. That being said, we haven't seen the squad yet for the next test, or certainly the teams. Maxi, I'll start with you, mate. You're leaning towards the fact that you'd be looking elsewhere and giving Marnus a bit of a spell.
Yeah, I would be. And look, I think just to continue the stats theme, I wanted to just bring you one that was from our mate Tim Mitchell with the Daily Telegraph. He said that in 9 of 10 last innings for Marnus have been 10 or less. He's only got 110 in his 1 ton in his last 41 test innings, and 11 of his last 18 test innings he's been out for 10 or less. And look, while all the precedent in the world will say, "Be calm, we don't need to panic," I want to change that by sharing some precedent from our own successful ODI World Cup last year. Now, we started that tournament with a guy called Alex Carey with the gloves behind the stumps, but he had a lean run of form. And despite the confidence that was shown with him to start game one of that tournament, by game two, he was out of the team and we brought in Josh Inglis. And Inglis went on to not only play an important part behind the stumps with his glove work, but had several crucial knocks throughout the World Cup tournament, winning us games, particularly in the semi-final, a very tricky semi-final against South Africa. So in that sense, we went against tradition. We went against what most people would say that, we'll give, the talent will shine through over form. Talent is permanent and form is temporary. But we went against that then, and it worked out really great for us. And I think now could be a time where we make a similar change. I don't think the opportunity for Marnus to find form and to get better is to continue to go out there and have to face Jasprit Bumrah. I don't think that's a good way that realistically any batsman in the world is going to improve their game for having to face the greatest bowler of their generation with the seed. So I think it's time for him to step away, to give someone else a crack. It could be that man Josh Inglis, again, the spare matter at the moment, but I think that now is the time before, and let's give him a spell. Let's see what else. We've got an aging team. We need to start looking at new players anyway for the next generation. And I think it's time for Marnus to have a break, go decompress, and potentially show us in the next series or the one after that the player that he used to be.
Yeah, look, well said, mate, and very valid points there. Great comparison with the World Cup. Just as a side note to Timmy Mitchell down at the Herald Sun there, calling him a Daily Telegraph journalist, that is like, in context, calling Ricky Ponting a great English cricketer or something like that, because, look, they play for the same team, News Corp, the Telegraph and the Herald Sun. As someone who used to work at the Telegraph, I get it, I was there, but Timmy will be livid if he hears you say that. So you want to hope he doesn't tune into the podcast. Hey, Rahendo, I'll throw to you, mate. You think Marnus, there's enough runs on the board, probably not in the last 21 tests or the last 41 innings, but across his career that you'll have to stick with him for now and give him another crack.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Maxi, for getting the umpire offside with you. So I might be able to get this wicket off you. I think you got to stick with Marnus Labuschagne here. I mean, sending him back into first grade cricket, they've got one more Shield game. That starts on the 6th of December for Queensland. That's going to run over of course, the second test. But then you don't have a Shield game until mid-February by that point, which, I mean, basically you're just kicking Marnus out, not giving him an opportunity to get better. And by that point, they might have already played a test in Sri Lanka by then. So I just don't think that dropping him is going to really achieve anything, and you're not going to pick him off Big Bash form, that's for sure. He does have obviously a terrible run. His last 10 innings in Oz his last 6 innings in Oz haven't been too overwhelming. It's a day-night test in Adelaide, limited bounce. So it should be a good wicket for him. He averages 64 in day-night test matches compared to 48 over his career average. He did have 1 and 5 in that day-night test last time against the Windies in Adelaide. Hopefully he can build off the back of that. But I think it's a pick and stick method. We got obviously Nathan McSweeney in there. He's the debutant experiment, and he scored 10 runs altogether in that Perth test. It's the lowest by an Australian test opener since Andrew Hilditch in 1979, that collective run scoring there. So I think Nathan McSweeney should still be our risk and gamble in that batting order. Labuschagne, he's been there. He's done it before. You know, he's like a Steve Smith clone. He is so methodical in how he practices. He got struck in front LBW in both innings to start, so his footwork definitely needs a lot of attention. Usually he gets caught. In his last 15 innings previous to that, 11 times he was caught. So he's kind of gone from getting out, hitting and getting out to just not hitting them at all and getting out LBW that way. So I think Marnus, he's a professional. He can definitely get his career back on track. It's not like he's a 5-gamer struggling for confidence. I'm sure he can certainly find it. He's got 10 days as well up his sleeve to prepare for this second test in Adelaide. So I think sticking by him, hopefully be proven right, and he'll get a big score in Adelaide.
There's those stats of yours, Rando. They get the hairs standing on end. Good gear, that. All very noted points. And look, as the judge of this, I need to be as impartial as I can come in, because I came in with a view, and I'm trying to judge the debate between you two without any prejudice, any of that. Max, I'm going to throw back to you, and you've got one chance to sway me, because I'm in the camp of let's give Marnus one more test match to see if he can rectify it. I will say the fact that there is one Shield game left, I'm kind of sort of in the boat of, all right, is that an opportunity to send Marnus back to get two innings and try and spend some time at the crease? And by time at the crease, I don't mean a 52 ball 2, because that doesn't really count when you haven't hit one of them. Maxi, if you're dropping Marnus, who comes in and why?
Well, I think you've got 2 potential options. One, you could bring in Josh Inglis, you move everyone up, and he comes into that number 6 spot. Or potentially this is the way you get your Bo Webster and that bit more of a bowling all-rounder in that 6 spot, and everyone moves up. But what I would say on Marnus is that this bloke, he's forgotten that feeling of spending long amounts of time in the middle and feeling bat on ball. And I think that the problem that he could experience for the rest of this series is endemic of the problem that the Australian team had in that entire first test, in that they were underdone. We had blokes who had played no Shield cricket, 1 game of Shield cricket, and no test matches coming up against an Indian team who were coming off back-to-back series in their home conditions. And we looked underdone. And I just don't know if Marnus is going to improve his game and get back to that player, learning his craft in the middle of a test match environment, especially one with the pressure that would be on him from an Indian series, playing from behind against the best bowler in the world.
Good argument, boys. Really good argument. And look, we could go all day, but we won't. And I almost feel like Rando coming in and mentioning just that one Shield game left, that's almost against what you were trying to do, mate. But that's almost fun when you're thinking, get him back for one Shield game, let him go out and hit 70 or 80, bring him back up for game 3 if Inglis or Webster or whoever the replacement is, if they fail for Australia. I know that's tough when you bring a player up for a test to potentially drop them if Marnus performs. I'm going to hand it to Maxi. He's swung me a little bit. I think there's an opportunity there to have a crack at it. The big factor as well, if they are worried, look, I don't think there's going to be mountains of runs scored in Adelaide, swinging ball, day, night, all those sort of factors. So, yeah, look, I'm going to lean towards Maxi and give him this one. Sorry, Rando, but he swung me enough. So I'm going to pay it out to you. Congratulations, Maxi.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, mate. You know, if the Australian selectors will be as aggressive as I'd like them to be, that's another story. But I'll take the win on the Cricketers Playbook, that's for sure.
Mate, and just like my namesake Nathan McSweeney, mate, I'll take a first ball duck. I'm going to come back firing though. Just stick with me, Timmy. I'll probably be dropped for this next podcast then.
I'll back you to bounce back, mate. Just like Jaiswal in that second innings. Boys, touch on it quickly because we have to. The IPL auction, and I don't care about who went for $8 billion and all that and have set themselves and their family and their extended family up for the rest of their life for 5 weeks of work. 13-year-old Vaibhav Suryavanshi earns an IPL contract worth 1.1 crore, the youngest ever to earn a deal in the IPL. To put that in context, Steve Smith and David Warner didn't get IPL contracts. They were shunned at the auction. He knocked off a 58-ball century against the Australian under-19s 2 months ago as an opening bat. Maxi, I don't think any of us know a lot about this kid, but holy moly. I know he's been playing a bit of first class over in India before getting this. It's honestly remarkable, a 13-year-old.
Yeah, it is truly unbelievable. And I do remember when he scored that ton in a 4-day game that the Australian under-19s were playing against the India under-19s. Some of the quotes that he came out with afterwards were awesome. Just talking about how he just loves to be aggressive and feel bat on ball. But look, first things first, you really got to check the birth certificate because it's borderline unbelievable, even what he did in that under-19 series, let alone the fact that he's now in the IPL. But regardless, player sounds like he's got all the potential in the world, and you got to just tip your hat to him. Certainly sounds like a bit of a pick on potential rather than performance. I don't know if we're going to get a good look at him in next year's IPL tournament, but geez, it just shows you what cricket can do for these talented young Indians.
That's Rando. Like you and I are a similar age. At 13 years old, of your oldies just going, hey, mate, you've just been signed by, the Speed Blitz Blues. Actually, not the Speed Blitz Blues, because my example's not going to work in that sense. The Western Redbacks. And you've got to go out and face Brett Lee at 155 kilometres as a 13-year-old. Thoughts?
Well, that's the thing. Like, how many games will he play of the IPL? Is he getting a free 200K just to stand beside some great cricketers and just really absorb that knowledge and then become something great? I don't know how many games he'll play. Not too sure where he bats in the order as well, but it'll be really interesting. 200K at 13 years old. I wouldn't know what to do with that money. The one thing that I am fearful of is hopefully this early exposure doesn't jeopardize his career whatsoever. The youngest IPL player before him was Prayas Ray Barman. He was selected at 16 years old 6 years ago. He only played one game for Bangalore, who he was signed with, and he hasn't played any List A or T20 international cricket at all. He's 22 now and gone absolutely nowhere with his career. So hopefully the money and the fame doesn't get to his head. He stays humble, he stays focused, but far out. I am so jealous of that kid. 200K, I'm not even getting that. I don't think I've even saved that much.
Oh, it's absurd. I hope he gets a game, so I cannot wait to have a proper look at him. But yeah, of course, one to keep an eye out for. And as you sort of alluded to, Maxi, but it's the definition of a pick on potential. There's probably never been in world sport more of a pick based on potential, but they'll want to hope that this kid's loyal, because if they hold him for about 3 or 4 years without playing a game, then he gets to about sort of 17 where he might have an actual bat and have a proper run for them, and he goes off and signs with Kolkata or something, you'd be absolutely filthy. Did he sign with Kolkata? I don't know who he ended up with. He may have. Boys, let's move on. Rando, your stat deep dive for us now. For the listeners out there who are unfamiliar with the work, you do lots and lots of digging and mining and collating all of these unbelievable stats. You put them together, you create your own, hence the name Random Stats Guy, big social media following, all that sort of stuff. What have you found for us today?
I thought I've been taken into a different a turn here. Obviously, the stats are great to pound them out. But I've got Maxi down there, and I know he's an absolute cricket nut. I heard one of your podcasts last year, and the knowledge this guy has is absolutely second to none. I threw out a little stat question this morning, and he told me to fuck off with the easy ones, just to try and find something harder. So what I thought I'd do, I thought I'd pin you two against. Sorry, Timmy, I'm throwing you under the bus here. I'm pinning you two together to see who you can find out In fact, I'll give you the first two questions, Tim, to see if you can answer them, because I know these are just like, the first two questions of a general knowledge quiz for Maxi. But I thought I'd do like a little trivia section, get the audience engaged, try and pause the questions and see if they can answer it for themselves. So I've got 5 questions here. One of them you answered yourself. So hopefully you get this first one, Tim, because you already alluded to it in the show already.
I don't think I approved of this segment of me making myself sound like a dumbass on my own show, but carry on, please. What have you got?
I know. It's an absolute sabotage. I'm so sorry about that. We'll start with Jaiswal, obviously setting heaps of records last week. And, of course, at 22, he brought up his 4th 150-plus test score of his career, which sits him second all-time for most 150s before turning 23. A question that I was going to ask, but you obviously already talked about this, Tim, so hopefully you get this. Which batsman has hit the most 150-plus scores before turning 23? And since you did your research, can you name how many 150-plus scores he had?
It's the Don. And I'm going to go with 6.
Maxi, do you know the answer?
I don't know if I can get into the specifics as deep as that, but I feel like he would have had probably 5.
He had 8 before turning 23, the Don. But wow. it was the Don. So an easy tick there for
that's
Timmy.
2 for me and 0 for Maxi, because I got the Don first and I got 8 for Maxi. So I'll bank my points. 2 and move on.
That is true. Double points. Double points indeed, of course. Virat Kohli, the next question. He hit his 30th Test century of his career last week. Which Australian Test player is he now equal with for Test centuries?
Do you want to have first dibs, Tim?
Yeah. So equal for Test centuries with in Australia or of all time?
All time. 30 Test centuries.
30 Test centuries. Okay. I reckon punters still got him. Mate, let's go with Matty Hayden.
Maxi, who are you going to pick?
Yes, I'm going to go with Stephen Waugh.
Matty Hayden is correct. Timmy has gone up. Another double pointer. All right.
This was not stitched up. This was not pre-planned. Maxi,
this is not stitched up at all.
Do you even follow cricket, Matty? Matty Maxi or what?
Mate, from time to time, you can call me Maxi Hayden if you want.
He's
but mate, I think we're getting into the real niche areas, but I'm here for it. And now I've got to make a miraculous comeback, what the Aussies lacked in the 4th innings. Bring it on, Rando.
Here we go. So Jasprit Bumrah, he took 5 wickets in the first innings against Australia. He became the first visiting captain to take a fifer in Australia since which player? I'll probably have to hint some clues here after a while, so let me know if you need one. But you can have a first guess.
Visiting what? Was it, mate?
Captain.
Oh, captain. I was thinking straight for West Indies last year. I was an easy one. Visiting captain to take 5 wickets. That's going to be
the first
tough.
thing we're trying to figure out is which captains have rolled the arm over.
And
it does feel like that's sort of more fewer than many. So,
can you give us can you give us a time? Unless Maxi wants to have an early shout, but maybe a time frame if you don't have an early guess, Maxi.
2000 to 2010. 2000 to 2010. That year, 2000 to 2010.
Did like someone like Anil Kumble ever captain a Test? I don't know if he did or not.
Yeah, that's a
really
good shout. Really good
shout. He's got it again. Yes.
Here I was trying to get cute. I was thinking Chris Cairns potentially, but I don't even know if he ended up captaining New Zealand because Stephen Fleming wore the armband for so long there. The other guy that I was going to go with was Daniel Vettori. But again, not even completely convinced that he was skipper for so long. But man, I'm getting mine. I'm like the Aussies in the first Test here.
And
Shouldn't have talked me up.
if anyone wants to test the validity of this, we are on YouTube right now. So you can just like really zoom in on my face, slow it down and watch me staring at the roof trying to think about this. So it's legit. It's legit. Is that all of them, Rando, or are we done? Or we got more?
We got one more for Maxi here. Surely
give him
he can
an
get
easy
this
one, mate. Give him an easy one.
Yeah, I'll give him the easiest one on the lot. Sayam Ayub obviously hit the third fastest ton by a Pakistani in the second ODI against Zimbabwe. Unlike most batsmen who have hit fastest centuries before, Ayub did this in a run chase. So my question is, which player has hit the fastest ODI ton batting second?
Ooh, good question.
For any nation.
I know that like the highest score...
For any nation, the ultimate record fastest ODI ton in a run chase.
I'm going to go straight to my boy,
I reckon
AB de Villiers.
Yeah, no. And I'm going to... I was thinking around that country, potentially like a Herschel Gibbs in that famous South Africa versus Australia match where they chased 430. But I feel like it's probably
a subcontinent team. Subcontinent team.
Few curly ones.
Let's go. Sanath Jayasuriya. Is it?
No, unfortunately not. No.
I'm all out of guess, mate. I'm all out.
Yeah, you might have to give us a country, Rando.
Pakistan.
Pakistan chasing quick runs.
Unless
it was Shahid Afridi in his record-breaking knock.
It was Shahid Afridi.
Yeah, wow.
One of his.
Gosh.
So he owns 3 of the fastest ODI tons, including that equal one with Ayub, and it was against Sri Lanka back in 2005. He smashed out 100 in I think 42, 46 balls.
Wow. Boom Afridi, one of the all-time greats. I know he obviously held that record for being the fastest ODI ton for years and years, and he scored allegedly as about a 16 or 17-year-old. But, that record's even better than I remember, mate. So, yeah, well done, Timmy. Got to tip my cap to you this week. I'll have to hit the books before next week's episode.
Maxi with some deep soul searching. One of the great upsets of all time, that one. So that was that was a clean sweep, a bigger clean sweep than NZ and India a couple of months ago. That's unbelievable. Anyway, moving on, guys. Before we get to our World 11, if you've been doing it a little bit hard on the punt and you've been loading up on 100-1 same game multis, or if you're an Indian listener, you've been loading up too much into your Dream 11 account, then you come to Monday, you can't afford your coffee, you might be losing control of your punting. It's a position many find themselves in, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. I myself, I've thrown a bet on from time to time, had to sit back and rein it in because it's been too much. I've gone, mate, just check yourself. Guys, if you feel this may be you, there's help available with Gareth Wyatt and his team at CCAL. It is free. It is confidential no matter where you are in Australia. The biggest thing that Gareth always tells me when we have a coffee and sit down and chat about trying to get people a bit of help who might be doing it tough is that anyone who listens to the SC Playbook podcast and they hear me speak about CCAL, they link up with them and they say they wish they'd done it 12 months earlier when they'd first heard me speaking about them. So, guys, if you do want to get in touch with Gareth and his team, big sports fans, cricket, footy, all those things, you can contact them on Instagram. Send them a direct message at CCAL Gambling. That is spelled CECAL. You can hit them up on an email at gareth.w@ccal.org.au. Give them a buzz on 9559 4013. Now, boys, part 2 of the show, the World Team of the Week, the part where we keep you up to date with everything that's happening in the last week of world cricket. We've scoured every major fixture, both domestic and international, well, almost every domestic one, to vote on our World Team of the Week. We then give our 3-2-1 for best performance of the world, in the world, I should say, for the corresponding week, with the votes going towards the race for the mace. Each player's point, essentially, goes towards the tally for their country. We'll determine the winning nation each month and keep an ongoing leaderboard all year round to see who reigns victorious. The criteria here, guys, far heavier weight into international cricket. So if a player in domestic has the exact same as international. The international is going to win leaps and bounds, miles ahead. And to avoid sort of major bias for this, we want to be a worldwide podcast, don't we, boys? We're going to avoid, if it is a domestic Australian cricket one, which we'll be keeping a close eye on, it's got to be a superb performance, potentially even a match-winning performance if they're going to surpass something that's happened across the world. Boys, this week, it dates back to November 20. We need to pick 2 spots for openers, 4 spots for the middle order batsmen, a wicket keeper, and 4 bowlers. Maxi, I will start with you, mate. Who did you find in that opening bat role this week?
Thanks, Timo. Look, my series that I'm covering are the Sheffield Shield, the first-class competition in Australia, and the Test series between the West Indies and Bangladesh. And I had 3 openers to call out. The first one being, and they're all from the Sheffield Shield, so Henry Hunt, 106 against Western Australia. He's the South Australian opening bat. And Cameron Bancroft finally broke his duck with 105 not out. It was his first score over 50 all summer, and celebrated like, the weight of the world was finally off his shoulders. And of course, we had a first-class century as well to Campbell Kellaway, the Victorian opener, with 122 off 175 deliveries against Queensland.
Happy for bangers on that one. It's been a lean sum for a bloke whose name was floated for that opening spot. So good to get that one off the back. And if you can double it up in the next Shield game, another ton, who knows? Rando, you had the Australia versus India first test, and you had the Zimbabwe versus Pakistan first and second ODIs. What did you find in the opening slot?
Yeah, I think I found this kid named Jaiswal, I think, for India, the opening batsman, 161. We had a massive rampage about him. He obviously starred for India, but what's even better is that he bounced back from that duck in the first innings to get that big total. My other opener comes from Pakistan, Zaim Ayub. Obviously, Pakistan down and out, 0-1 against Zimbabwe. Always tough to get that second ODI win against the Zimbabweans when you're down to them. He hit 113 off 62 balls, the third fastest ton by a Pakistani player. And of course, in a run chase as well, a huge momentum shift. So those were my 2 openers from those 2 series.
Yeah, and what adds more weight, obviously, to Ayub Tun as well, actually the third fastest player Pakistani, or tied third. The fact that they lost that first game to Zimbabwe, because you could hear it and go, Zimbabwe, Andy Flowers retired. Does it really mean much these days? They've still got a bit going for them, the Zimbabweans. So, it's impressive to back it up off that loss. Boys, for myself, I have the Abu Dhabi T10 tournament, 19 games in the last week or so. They do not muck around over there in Abu Dhabi. Phil Salt, the Englishman, 53 not out off 19 balls for Abu Dhabi. The opposition in that as well were rolled for 79 runs. So adding weight to it, because a lot of the decks over there, they're flat as a tack. So there's some big scores going on in this. But boys, the South African, the former skipper Faf du Plessis, 2 knocks for the Samp Army, 75 not out off 32 and 76 not out off 26 deliveries. To do it once, amazing. To do it twice, unbelievable. To do it at about 68 years old, Faf, that is good going there. Boys, we have voted off air for our openers, and despite Faf's brilliance and winding the clock back, we've gone with Jaiswal and Ayub as our openers. I will throw to you, Maximus, for your middle order bats. The 3 to 6 slots, we need 4 of these. You don't need to have 4 nominations, but what did you find?
Got 2 for you, Timmy. First one, Justin Graves, the West Indian against Bangladesh in that test match. Scored his first test century, 115, and then also took 2 wickets as well for the match. So really good all-round performance from the big West Indian. And then that man, Bo Webster, he has had a hell of a start to his summer domestically in Australia. In a match currently underway against the New South Wales Blues at the SCG, he scored 61 in the first innings. He scored 49 in the second innings. And he took 3 for as well with the ball. Already got 2 catches for the match, and he'll be helping that Tasmanian push for victory at the SCG as we record. So a fantastic performance from Big Bo.
Yeah, massive all-round performance from Bo, especially to add weighting to that, just to do it under so much pressure with a potential Australian spot on the line. Maybe not next test. Maybe it is. We don't know, but he's doing everything he can at the moment. Rando, what did you find, mate?
Terrible day to be a middle order batsman, or terrible week, shall I say. Obviously, the standout is King Kohli, his dominant 100 not out against Australia in that third innings. Incredible. His 30th test century. He had a 15 innings drought of scoring a ton as well. And he hadn't scored more than 5 runs in his previous 4 innings. So he definitely silenced critics for his age, whether he should retire. That was a defiant 100, especially to do it on a Perth pitch. My other entry, now you're going to see the score and think it's not that flattering, but Sikandar Raza, the Zimbabwean middle order batsman, he had 39 off 56, contributed a gutsy 69-run 8th wicket partnership. He also took 2 wickets with the ball as well. This partnership was huge in the grand scheme of things in that first ODI between Zimbabwe and Pakistan. First of all, he came in, they were 7 for 125 at that point. If you knew the result of the game, it went to a DLS method. So if they got bundled out pretty quickly, Pakistan probably would have had a chance to chase down that score had they had a bit more time before the rain came over. So his 69 8th wicket partnership run work with another fellow Zimbabwean, Richard Nagaravwa, was incredible in saving that performance. And of course, his work with the ball as well, taking 2 wickets, was something to be very proud of.
He's such a gun, Raza. When we were recording this last season or last summer for 6 or so episodes, his name was popping up all over the place and probably not getting the notoriety that he deserves, being from Zimbabwe on the international stage, but across domestic competitions that he's playing when he's probably more higher profile tournaments, the man can bat. Love those two. Matt, you said a bad week for you, Rando, to be a middle order batsman. Great week to be a middle order batsman if you're in Abu Dhabi. Runs flowing. Chris Lynn, the Aussie veteran, 68 not out off 28 balls for the Chennai Braves. He had a couple of really good knocks, but that was the standout. Josh Butler also had a number of standout knocks, but 62 not out off 24 deliveries for the Deccan Gladiators. Shafane Rutherford, the West Indian, 103 not out off 40 deliveries. You heard that correct, for the Northern Warriors. And Liam Livingston, the Englishman, 50 not out off 15 balls for the Bangla Tigers. Boys, voting off air, we locked in at the risk of pissing off a billion Indians. Virat Kohli is in the team. Rutherford is in as well. Greaves and the local Aussie, Bo Webster, has also snuck in with his domestic performances. Wicket keepers. Now, a surprisingly tough week for wicket keepers, even in Abu Dhabi. I'll start with you, Maxi. Did you find anything there?
I didn't, mate. There was no one in the Shield or that series between the West Indies and Bangladesh who really stood out with the glove, so I might throw it straight to Rando.
Rando.
Yeah, nothing special in terms of the Australia or India tests or the Zimbabwe and Pakistan game either. Alex Carey, a little shout out, 5 catches, 1 stumping throughout the match, and a 36 run score in that 4th innings for Australia. But other than that, nothing too big to report on.
Boys, fortunately, the Spice Man, Andre Fletcher, the big bad West Indian, big fan of the Cricketers Playbook podcast, and he follows his world cricket as well, and he saw that there were no real wicket keepers standing up, so he said, stuff it, I'll sort you, Timbo. Comes out 75 not out off 27 deliveries for the Nawabs over in Abu Dhabi. An unbelievable performance from the Spice Man. Locked in, not a lot to beat there, but seriously, that's going to win most weeks for the big man. Boys, to wrap it up, our bowlers. Maxi, we need 4 of these in total. Who'd you find here?
I'll give you a couple of nominations. There was Joel Paris and Brendan Doggett with fifers in the Shield, but ultimately that match petered out to a draw between WA and South Australia. The big one for me, though, was Taskin Ahmed, the Bangladeshi veteran, plays all 3 formats, and he's a fiery character. His team lost, but he took 8 wickets for the match, including 6 for 64 against the West Indies. So a really good effort from Taskin Ahmed.
Yeah, that's unreal. Rando, over to you, mate. What'd you find?
For me, it's got to be the Indian pace bowlers, starting with the Indian skipper, Jasprit Bumrah. He took the best figures, in both innings for India. 5 in that first innings, 3 for 42 in the second innings. He wasn't doing it alone either. Mohammad Siraj, he set the tone. 7 maidens in his 13 overs in that first innings bowling. Great work applying the pressure. He also took 2 wickets in that first innings as well to finish with 2 for 20. In the second innings, he came round and took 3 for 51 to finish off the Aussie. So I thought the Indian tack was incredible. One last player, and I just mentioned him before, Richard Nagarava. He had 48 off 52. He was the other batsman along with Raza there, keeping the 8th wicket partnership alive. Now, it's the 5th highest score by a Zimbabwean number 9 in history. So an unbelievable feat there. He might not have taken any wickets in the 2 ODIs, but that knock of 48 off 52 will go down in folklore. He'll tell it to his grandchildren the day he knocked over the great cricketing nation of Pakistan at home.
Well, that's all right, mate. We've got, fortunately, a medium quick in Bo Webster already in our team. So we've got another bowling option. So if we need Nagarava in just as a straight batsman, we don't need him to bowl. I don't care if he's not taking wickets. Boys, for myself, tougher going in Abu Dhabi because of the flat decks, but I did find some pin-up performances, none better than the Irishman, Mark Adair, 4 for 11 off 2 overs. So for those unfamiliar with the Abu Dhabi T10, 10 overs. So 2 overs max for your bowlers, and Mark Adair 4 for 11 for Abu Dhabi. Luke Wood took 3 for 8 off 2 overs. Muhammad Amir 3 for 7 off 2 overs. Then Adil Rashid 3 for 6 off 2 overs. Boys, voting off air, we locked in. We had Bumrah, we had Taskin Ahmed, we had Adair. The 4th spot was a bit more up for debate. We went with Siraj, and there were probably statistically some better performances across the board, in particular in my Abu Dhabi T10. But look, when blokes are rattling off 3 for 6 off 2 overs, and then Siraj has come down to Australia against the fearsome Australian bowling attack going toe-to-toe, Siraj has snuck in for us. So it's a very Indian flavour to the team this week, and I think well-deserved off the back of their dominant victory over the Australians. Now, boys, for the race for the mace. This is we're going to give our 3, 2, 1s and work out who gets the votes for this week to lift the mantle as the best player in world cricket for the week. Maxi, who's your 3, 2, 1?
Very simple for me this week, mates. 1 vote will go to Sam Ayub from Pakistan for his amazing ton in the ODI, I believe it was. And then the points a little bit harder to split. I'm going to give Jaiswal 2, and I'm going to give 3 to Jasprit Bumrah. Just proved what a world-class player he is and what a historically good generational player he is by almost single-handedly dismantling that Australian top order twice over there in Perth. I'm absolutely scared for what the Australian Test team might produce for the rest of these 4 matches, and for that reason, he gets the 3 points from me.
Rando?
Mine's a full Indian flavour. I'm going to give 1 point to the King, Kohli. That 100 not out. Obviously, he needed that. Hopefully, Marnus gets some sort of energy from that. A 15 innings drought without a century. I know it's his 30th, but he has really been in a rut. 2 points I'm going to give to Jasprit Bumrah. Great with the ball, as Maxi mentioned, but I can't go past Jaiswal. Another sensational innings, especially coming off the back of that duck in your first ever innings in Australia. You're going, well, it's going to be tough, like they all said. Goes out in the next innings, 161 runs. Absolutely incredible. And at the age of 22 as well, unbelievable. So I have to give him the 3 points.
All righty. So I have given 1 point to Jasprit Bumrah. He has narrowly got up ahead of Shafane Rutherford due to, as we said, international duties, but an unbelievable knock from the West Indian. Yeah, Jasprit Bumrah 1 for me. I've gone Ayub from Pakistan, 2 votes, because to do that, coming off a losing game, I think you mentioned there, Rando, equal third quickest century by a Pakistani. And then 3 votes, Jaiswal. I thought he was the man. And look, we can talk Bumrah all we want, but Jaiswal to do it coming off, the Indians' first innings of 150 to score 161 by himself. Australia were lucky to get that across 2 innings for 20 batsmen. So what do we end up with there, boys? We've got Jaiswal and Bumrah, clearly the top 2, and I reckon Ayub is the 1 vote. How many did we have for Jaiswal and how many for Bumrah? I had Jaiswal 3. Rando, you had Jaiswal 3. And then Max, you had Jaiswal.
Yeah, 8. I think 8 votes.
2. All right. Jaiswal 3, Bumrah 2, and Ayub 1. So look, India are dominating. They're out to a 4-point lead over Pakistan and Ayub on 1. Guys, we will wrap that up for the first episode of the summer for the Cricketers Playbook podcast. Please go and give us a follow on SC Playbook Cricket, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We're everywhere. We'll be doing clips from this out onto that. We'll be putting out our World Team of the Week and all those good things. Maxi, thank you very much, mate. Good to have you back for the Cricketers Playbook podcast.
Cheers, Timbo. Good debut, Rando. Better than McSweeney. And for all the listeners out there doubting me, I will hit the books and study and come back bigger and better next week.
He's rattled. Jeez, he's rattled. And Rando, massive debut for you, mate. Massive debut. So thank you to yourself.
Thanks, fellas, for having me on. No, absolutely loved it. And the stats in the cricket game, it's just great to talk and get it off my chest because I've been holding it in all season. So when I got the call up, I wasn't going to disappoint.
Oh, it's a match made in heaven for you, Rando. Righto, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for tuning in.